Now I just want to see all the other Na'vi tribes on Pandora. Hey everybody, welcome to Mainly Movies. Today I'm going to be talking about the 2022 sci-fi action sequel, Avatar: The Way of Water. If you're new here, please consider subscribing for a variety of movie-related content like reviews, rank lists, and trailer reactions. All my reviews include a breakdown of the pros and cons, my rating, and some tailored film recommendations, so be sure to watch through to the end of this video for all of that extra content. Avatar: The Way of Water stars Sam Worthington, Zoe Saldaña, and Stephen Lang, and was directed by James Cameron. Set a decade and a half after the events of Avatar, it tells the story of Jake, Neytiri, and their family as they integrate with a water tribe in order to survive a familiar threat. Blockbusters and sequels are two concepts that seem like they should go hand in hand, and I suppose they often do. But blockbusters and successful, creatively worthwhile sequels, not quite as common of a feat. When Avatar came out in 2009, it was huge. Not just at the box office, breaking all manner of records, which it still holds to this day, but also huge in terms of pop culture relevance. It was seemingly everywhere, but over the years, that excitement and prominence has waned. 13 years after the first film's release, we've finally got a sequel, the first of a proposed 4. A decade of preparation and work has gone into this franchise revival, or perhaps more accurately, creation. But is Avatar Mania still there to back it up? I was always on the positive side of lukewarm for the original film, even when I first saw it. So this was never a sequel I was clamoring for, but even I have to admit that I was impressed by The Way of Water. As with its predecessor, the visual effects are the shining achievement in The Way of Water. Avatar revolutionized the VFX game in 2009, taking motion capture and CGI environments to places they had never been before. 13 years later, nearly all of the visual elements of that film still hold up remarkably well, so it's no surprise that 13 more years of technological improvements upon that have made Avatar 2 even more of a visual spectacle. Further motion capture advancements, including extensive underwater mocap and greatly improved textures, make an impressive difference here, along with some creative character and creature design. It's an incredibly detailed visual display, enhanced by both the IMAX and 3D presentation, resulting in footage that could easily be mistaken for some otherworldly nature documentary. Every time I've watched Avatar over the years, I've been struck by the sense that the film was just barely scratching the surface with its extensive world building. It never felt like all that had been created and crafted for the film was actually captured on screen. It extended beyond the bounds of the film to create a lived-in world that felt like it could be real. The technology, the creatures, the Na'vi culture, even Pandora itself. It always felt like there was so much more to explore. Well, The Way of Water absolutely confirms those feelings. With this sequel, we see an immense expansion on the already extensive world building set forth by the first film. We get to see more of Pandora, more biomes, more tribes that are not only culturally different than the Na'vi we're accustomed to, but also anatomically different, uniquely adapted to their specific aquatic environment. New creatures, new threats, and new adventures. It's genuinely exciting to see more of this crafted world, and as with the first movie, I can't wait to see what else this world building has in store for us. Although the story and script are improved over those of the first film, they are still the movie's weakest aspects. There is a bit of retreading when it comes to certain ideas and conflicts, and there's definitely a sense that components of this film have just been transposed from the force of Avatar 1 to the new aquatic setting, but it does do enough differently that it manages to distinguish itself, feeling like an apt continuation rather than just a carbon copy. Even though there's still a degree of familiarity and a simple and predictable plot trajectory, The Way of Water feels much less like a mashup of other movies than its predecessor did. Family and environmental themes are at the forefront here, complete with the Na'vi equivalent of a Save the Whales campaign. As with the plot, there's some welcome improvement with the characters too. Our previously one-note villain is back, with a handful of extra notes thrown in, and there's an attempted character arc for Jake, which does result in some mostly earned emotional beats. This film divides its focus even more than the first movie did, but the prominence of Jake and Neytiri's kids as focal characters makes sense here, and is a nice respite from the characters we're already familiar with. Although a bit identifiably manipulative at times, the emotion is the beating heart, or pulsating awa, of this film. Combined with the propulsion of some very exciting action sequences, it helps prevent this film from ever feeling too long, and makes the intentionally left open plot threads more bearable. Never thought I'd say it, but bring on the sequels. Alright, let's talk about the pros and cons. Pro number one is easily the visual effects. This is obviously a no-brainer, but the visuals are far and away the most impressive aspect of this film. I'm sure it'll lose a little something on rewatch at home, but seeing this in IMAX 3D was a visual feast. The textures, and appropriately, the integration of water, were greatly improved here, resulting in a visually stunning experience. I'm not sure if Kate Winslet really had to hold her breath for 7 minutes to achieve this, but the motion capture is undeniably impressive. And just like its predecessor, the VFX here set a new high watermark. The second pro is the expansion of the world building. That world building was one of my favorite elements of the original movie. Everything from the creatures, to the technology, to the Na'vi culture were excitingly and thoroughly thought out. But even with that movie's huge scope, it felt like we were just scratching the surface. Because we were. This movie introduces new and story-relevant advancements in technology, new creatures and locations, and even new tribes of Na'vi, who differ physically and culturally from the Na'vi we already know. It's imagination-sparking expansion that leaves you wondering what else is going to be revealed to us over the next 3 films. On the con side, the biggest issue is the story. It's a marked improvement over that of the first film, but this is still a simple, familiar, and surprisingly average story nestled within some immensely creative world building. It's a little less familiar than the first film's indigenous versus imperialism plot, but the revenge-tinged family protection story here isn't exactly the most original thing either. Dialogue is still on the weaker side, but some character improvements and increased emotion and action ensure that this sequel is consistently more engaging than the first film. Before I give you my rating and recommendations, I want to remind you that if you're interested in buying Avatar: The Way of Water or any of the other films I mentioned today, I do have affiliate links for all of them in the description below. I get a small commission from anything you buy using one of my links, so I'd really appreciate it if you'd use them if you're in the market for any of these movies. I'm gonna give Avatar: The Way of Water 4 out of 5 paws, though it's right on the border between 3.5 and 4 for me. This long-delayed sequel is an impressive visual spectacle, with some wonderful effects and engagingly expanded world building. It still has some story familiarity, and leaves several plot threads open and unexplained for the sequels, but The Way of Water is a refreshing step up from its predecessor in nearly every regard. I would recommend Avatar: The Way of Water to fans of the first Avatar. If you were, or still are, engrossed by that first film, then you're sure to love this one too. With its improved visuals and continuation of character story arcs, it expands on the world of Pandora without ever becoming just a complete plot retread. Even people who were lukewarm on the first Avatar may find the stellar visual effects, emotional resonance, and action of the sequel engaging enough to draw them in. If you liked Avatar: The Way of Water, I would obviously recommend Avatar. Although this sequel does a pretty good job of summarizing all that you need to know to understand its plot, the themes, world building, and character introductions of this first film really help to set the stage. If you want some more underwater blue people from this year, you might want to watch Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. This is an MCU film, and a sequel itself, which spends some time exploring differences and similarities between 2 indigenous cultures. And if you're interested in another revenge-driven sci-fi fantasy sequel, then you should check out War for the Planet of the Apes. The third film in the rebooted Apes trilogy, this movie also features some extensive visual effects and motion capture. Alright, a couple questions for you guys. Number 1, have you seen Avatar: The Way of Water? If so, what'd you think of it? And number 2, what's your favorite movie that features motion capture performances? Be sure to leave your answers in the comments below so we can get a discussion going. Alright, so if you got some enjoyment, insight, or information out of this review, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit that like button, and if you haven't done so already, please hit subscribe while you're at it to see more videos like this. Till next time, this has been Alyssa with Mainly Movies, the way life should be.